just quickly to say, you saw the Music Against War sticker on the side of Christopher Haase and Salman Vega's car. And that is something that's been happening very much here this weekend. The band Hörner have been performing here, some wonderful music, playing peace songs, a song called Freedom, and they are also advertising on the Monteplas by Land Audi car, but really just making a stand in these troubled times that we live in, and really giving out a message of peace in this world. And it's, boy, do we need a bit of peace. So there we go, lots of spectators here in the sunshine. It looks perfect.
It does, and I must say, perfect choice of event for Hörner to show up, because they are a bit of Cologne music legends, and we're not too far away from there. So home crowd treated to their musical stylings pre-grid and earlier in the day as well during the track walk. Plenty of fans in the track walk earlier on, or the grid walk earlier on. Drivers, as always, accommodating the fans in the build to the race. There is a car that has a lot of fans, particularly fans last time out at Zandvoort, the Verstappen.com blessed car collection motorsport car. That will be started by the Italian Mattia Drudi. And Mattia Drudi, who is alongside Thierry Vermeulen in that car. Thierry Vermeulen is the son of Max Verstappen's manager, so there are links all along. There is the Mad Panda Mercedes, and another driver we welcomed back to the grid at Zandvoort last time out, Maxi Goertz, alongside Ezequiel Perez Compang. The Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, making its debut in GT Masters this year, has not been an amazing start for them, and they've brought Maxi Goertz in with a little bit of expertise to help them get that car up to speed. It's certainly working. He's qualified it on the 7th row of the grid for this race. The Mercedes, as we've already discussed, is very strong. We're expecting that car to be going forwards. Yeah, Maxi, I think, will be rather annoyed with himself to an extent that he didn't get the car up there with the other 4 Mercs at the sharp end of the order. But the Mad Panda team will be looking to scratch and claw their way up through the order, much like the rare beasts that they are named for. There's the newly formed, or newly, I suppose, rebranded Paul Motorsport team from the ashes of T3. Marco Mappelli taking the wheel of the car for the start of this one, of course, alongside Maximilian Paul Mappelli, another feisty driver who I expect will make up some positions.
Yes, and Paul Motorsport, who have, as you've mentioned, come from T3 Motorsport, a new team effectively on the grid, although in essence it is the same team, but a newly named team means that they start again on 0 points in the championship, although the drivers still retain their points as well. So good that the number 71 car is still on the grid. There is Luca Ensler in the Rutronic Racing Audi. He, of course, was the TCR Germany champion last year, and he is alongside Patrick Niederhauser in that seat. Patrick Niederhauser, the 2019 GT Masters champion. They have taken to this very well indeed. They got a 2nd place on their debut at the Oschersleben circuit at the beginning of the year. They got a 4th place yesterday, starting a fair way back on the grid today, but they can make progress from back there.
Yeah, 19th, sorry, on the grid for this race, whereas they qualified in the top 5 yesterday. So poor effort in quali, but we'll see what they can do. Katzberg and Krohn, Nikki Katzberg and Jesse Krohn, they'll be looking to do a bit better. Obviously, their colleagues at Schubert Motorsport qualified on the road, 2nd, 7th on the grid with the 5-place grid drop. So I'm sure Jesse will feel he has a point to prove. Norbert Siedler we saw rounding out this order of 21 cars. The 3-minute board has been shown. The anticipation is building and the grandstand is filling. We're not far away from race 2 of the weekend.
The cars look majestic in the Le Mans style lineup there on the pit straight, and very shortly the instruction will be given and the cars will burst into life for their formation lap, and then we will be racing. We are at the Nürburgring. We're using the sprint circuit. That's the shortest configuration available here at the Nürburgring. It is just 3.629 kilometers around. It has 11 turns, 4 to the left and 7 to the right. More undulation than you'd think watching the TV screens. It's not until we walked around it last night we realised quite how steep it is in places, particularly heading up to the chicane in turn 9. That is a lively place on the track anyway, the Vidal chicane.
Yes, a very lively place, of course. This Grand Prix circuit built on the former site of the Sudschleif, the south portion of the circuit. And there's always a temptation to call this new Nürburgring, but given it was built 13 years before I was even born, maybe I should scrap that nomenclature. There you see Ben Green awaiting the opportunity to fire up the M4 GT3. You saw the Fanatec branding on his steering wheel. You can actually buy a proper full-blown M4 GT3 steering wheel and use it on your sim rig if you've got several £1,000s to spare, which, for the record, I don't. There is Costa Balboa, I believe that is, at the wheel of the 63 car, the always fiery and passionate driver for Emil Frey, who has been racing with them for a good many years, and he'll be looking for a podium from that position.
Right, one thing we should mention is the success penalty. Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel, to start off with, will have an additional 20 kilos in their car as a result of their win yesterday. Joel Sturm and Sven Muller will have an additional 10 kilograms in their car, and Fabian Schiller and Jules Gounon will have an additional 5 kilos in their car. It's the success penalty that is awarded for one race only. They didn't have it in qualifying this morning, so with both cars on the front row carrying extra ballast, the pole position car a little more, you might wonder whether Frankie Bird and Lucas Stoltz might have eyes on trying to jump into the lead early on. Albert Costa Balboa, do not take your eyes off him starting 5th on the grid, because he always gets his elbows out. He doesn't know anything other than he wants to stand on the top step of the podium. End of story.
Both Frankie Bird and his team boss, one Bernd Schneider, will be hoping that Mauro Engel gets the launch off of the start of this race, because of course Bird is behind Engel on that side of the grid, and if Engel gets the jump on Gounon, then Bird could follow him through into second place approaching turn 1. That would be the ideal situation, I'm sure, for Team Landgraf. I'm sure for Manfilter. A pair of members up front. Don't mind if I do.
Were you sitting on a team breakfast this morning when we were discussing this? Maybe you were.
Several. I'm a man of size.
Indeed. I won't argue with that. Formation lap has started. The grandstands are full of spectators. The atmosphere is wonderful here. It's nearly 21 degrees centigrade, so conditions perfect. Not a hint of rain on the forecast. This is going to be a dry race. Let's have a look at the starting grid. It is Mauro Engel on pole position for Manfilter Team Landgraf, alongside Jules Gounon for Drago Racing Team ZVO. Another Mercedes row with Frank Bird and Lucas Stoltz, and on the third row, Albert Costa Balboa in the Lamborghini with Consta Lapperline, and 2 Lamborghinis for Emil Frey side by side. Ben Green with that penalty is on row 4, with Christopher Mies, defending champion, alongside Dennis Marshall for Rutronic Racing, and Christopher Harser as an all Audi row 5 of the grid. Christian Engelhardt and Sven Muller, it's an all Porsche row 6 of the grid. And row 7, Matthias Drudy and Maxi Gertz, the Mad Panda, lining up on the outside of that row. Marcus Winkelhock, an absolute legend, alongside another defending champion, Ricardo Feller, on row 8. And on row 9, Marco Mappelli and Arthur Rougier, another Lamborghini in the Emil Frey stable. Luca Engsler lines up along Jesse Krohn on row 10, and on row 11 of the grid is Norbert Siedler for East Talent Racing Team. So that is the grid. 21 runners and riders on perfect conditions here. You can see the cars on the right hand side of your screen just coming round the Vidal chicane. There is the point standings after qualifying this morning. It's Raffaele Marciello 7 points ahead of Engelhardt and Guven. It's all to play for. The championship is very much wide open. This is part 2 of the 2022 season for the ADAC GT Masters. We have 1 hour of racing ahead of us, and we are waiting for those 4 red lights to go off, and we are holding for quite a long time. It really is a long time. Eventually the lights go green, and it is Mauro Engel who leads into turn 1. Frankie Bird slotting in behind, having a little look up the inside, but here comes Jules Gounon on the outside. Keep an eye on Lucas Stoltz in the pink Mercedes as well. And Chris Christopher Mees, also a good start from him, up on the outside in the orange and black Audi. The rest of the cars coming through, but a great start from Mauro Engel. Several cars running wide, and the number 10 BMW Ben Green dropping back, but there's a Lamborghini that's gone spinning in the background. It is Albert Costa Balboa, so not the start that he wanted. Costa Balboa involved in an incident, and he's dropped back.
Yeah, someone else spinning there in the pack as well, coming out of turn 4. It's the number 8 car of Lucas Stoltz, and Stoltz has come to a halt there. There was clearly a lot of contact that we just missed at turn 4 on the live pictures. Winkelhock also slow, coming out of 5 into 6 in the car collection Motorsport Audi. So lots of dramas there. You see Costa Balboa on the back of the pack now, and one of the main beneficiaries of all this is Christopher Mees, who'd already had a lightning start, picking his way through the order. I believe he's now in 4th place. No such luck for Lucas Stoltz. He has a puncture.
So Lucas Stoltz was stranded out on turn 4. The safety car is out, so the cars are going to be brought back to a slower pace. I expect there's probably debris on the track, and we'll call car number 8 debris, but there may be some stuff from some of these cars that made contact. Hopefully we'll get an idea of what happened on a replay. Car 22, as you can see, under investigation for leaving formation before the start signal. They did hold the cars for an awful long time. It is a random sequence when the lights turn from red to green, and it took a long time today. So car 22, that's Sven Muller, who's also under investigation. Of course, he's running in 5th place, so this could be very significant indeed.
5th place from what, 12th on the grid, if memory serves me correctly. That is a very, very good effort. Make that 11th on the grid, but nonetheless, what an effort from Sven Muller on the first lap. But that start formation is one of those things that can be rather cut and dry. So let's see what happens as we go back to green. A very short safety car.
Yes, a very short indeed. I'm wondering whether the safety car was thrown for the number 8 car, and then it got going again and got moving. But we have notification that the safety car is in. Now let's have a look at this restart, and you can see Muller, he ducks out of line and then ducks back in again. And it's down to the stewards to decide whether he gained an advantage or not, but they don't take too kindly to the cars crossing the line in anything other than single file on the roads that they're meant to be. Here they are coming into turn 1. Always a bit of a result, we can get them both around. The yellow Mambas leading 1-2 at that point, but then it was Jules Gounon who came through on the inside. Let's have a look mid-order and see if we can see what happened to Costa Balboa. Unfortunately, we've just cut away. Did you see something?
No, I was just hoping we were going to stay with that shot a bit longer to see what happened with Stoltz at turn 4. That was what the angle was lined up for, but more important matters arise. We're back to green flag.
So out of turn 11 we come. It's Mauro Engel who leads the field back across the pack. It's Jules Gounon in a yellow Mamba sandwich. He is the filling. Here come the rest of the cars. Is that one of the Audis? Looks like the number 33 car, Matthias Drudy, ducking out of the queue further back. But look at this, Engel going deep into the corner. He's already got a handle on this race, despite the fact he's carrying that weight penalty. Jules Gounon behind, then Frankie Bird, Christopher Mees, Sven Muller, Arthur Rougier, Maxi Gertz up to P7. Great job from him. Christian Engelhardt there, just saw him dipping past somebody at the side on the corner of the picture. Looked like Dennis Marshall also involved, but here come the lead pack of cars. Mauro Engel leading the way.
Much more successful through the Mercedes arena on this attempt, maybe helped by the fact we started single file. Ben Green on the attack, as is Ian Chan-Guven ahead of him. Of course, Ben Green, one of the main, whatever the opposite of profiteering is, really, 11th place at the end of lap number 1. He lost a lot of time and position from his 7th place starting position, owing to the various dramas on that first lap, but better to take evasive action than end up involved. At the back of shot there, we saw the man who did get tagged out into a spin, Albert Costa Balboa, trying to go a little beyond the limits of the track. He was bouncing across the gravel coming out of Bilstein. Ben Green bouncing across the curbs at the Vidor chicane.
Keep an eye on the car in front of Ben Green. That is Christian Engelhardt in the yellow Porsche. In fact, Green and Engelhardt both very much in the championship hunt, and they can see their main rival in the championship. The car is leading the way. Look at this. The 27 car, Who is it? It's Dennis Marshall. Moment there. Dennis Marshall, who has been challenged by Christian Engelhardt. The two running side by side, and Marshall holds on. Did I see? No, there's just an investigation again, flashing up for car 91 for inaccurate grip position. So Christian Engelhardt only 4 points off the championship lead, and the stewards are taking a look at the start of his race as well. But this battle that's going on, Dennis Marshall is in 9th place. Behind him, Christian Engelhardt, and behind him is Ben Green. This is really significant for the championship, because the car that was leading the championship that's leading the race will have Raffaele Martiello behind the wheel in the second part of this race, and they need to catch up with it in a hurry.
Of course, Maurer Engel currently carrying 20 kilos of ballast as well, as we mentioned at the start of the race, and as this race progresses, that could become more and more of an issue. Tyre life is not aided by extra weight, nor, of course, is performance. So we'll see whether Gunon can get past Frankie Bird in contention as well at the sharp end of the order, as is Christopher Mies. We wouldn't have guessed that at the start of the day. Here comes Ben Green up the inside of Ayenchan Guven. This for 10th position, of Engelhardt, I should say, in 10th position. Now, that BMW is mighty going through the last sector. They can take so much more curb than anyone else at the Vidal chicane. They seem very confident.
And Christian Engelhardt has a penalty lap for an inaccurate grid position. Car number 91. Christian Engelhardt is going to have to visit the penalty box. It's a 200-meter box on the exit of turn 1. He'll have to pass through it at 50 kilometers an hour for no more than 50 kilometers an hour for one lap only. But that will drop him behind certainly the trio of cars that are behind him. He's going to drop behind them. He'll need to take that within the next couple of laps. So this is big for the championship. Christian Engelhardt is about to present 10th place to Ben Green. It's going to be gift wrap and on a velvet cushion.
And of course, this means that the car that came into this weekend as a joint championship leader is going to drop down effectively to last place. And that means that point scoring is going to be a very difficult task for Guven and indeed for current driver Engelhardt in today's race.
So just to remind you, if you're new to GT Masters, every car at some point during this race will need to visit the pits for a mandatory stop and driver change. There is a window that opens 25 minutes into the race. That window is open for 10 minutes and then closes. During that 10-minute window is when every car needs to visit the pits for its mandatory stop. There is also a minimum pit stop time of 65 seconds. If the car pits anything less than that, they will pick up a penalty. Now, challenges further back. That's Jesse Krohn going wheel to wheel with the number 33 car, Matthias Drudy, challenging for position. Both of them a lot further back. There is Engelhardt just visiting the penalty box. You can see how much that is going to hurt him. He drops like a stone as he gets back up to speed, and now he is all the way back with Albert Costa Balboa just ahead of him.
17th place then for Engelhardt now. It's going to be a hard, long day from that position. You saw there Jesse Krohn monstering Mattia Drudy on the main straight. I've heard from a couple of the Audi drivers that they feel they've been rather short-changed with straight line speed this weekend. The BMW, historically very strong in a straight line, the M4 in its short life. So those moves into turn 1 for the BMW up against an Audi could well be likely. There is Engelhardt in 17th place. Costa Balboa actually coming under threat from Ricardo Feller there at the very back of the order. Oh, Costa Balboa is already going to be fired up given what happened to him on the first lap, and now he's side by side with Feller, then so close to making contact you couldn't get a cigarette paper between them, and Costa Balboa is through and stays in his position even though Ricardo Feller almost got him.
So fighting all the way down the pack. So we've lost Lucas Stoltz, Marcus Vinkhot, we've also lost the rest of the cars continuing, and it's Ricardo Feller who is the last of those runners. We did see that warning earlier on for Sven Muller in the number 22 Porsche about an inaccurate starting position, as we see again Jesse Krohn moving to the inside, challenging for position on Matthias Drudy and getting past. We did see that the Muller car was flagged by the race stewards. They have awarded him a black and white flag, so that doesn't mean he has an immediate penalty. It does mean that if he commits any more crimes in this race, he may well visit the penalty box. So 22 has got away with it, unlike Christian Engelhardt, who really didn't get away with it.
Absolutely, he didn't. And Muller up into 5th place. This could be a good, strong day for himself and Joel Sturm. Of course, we saw yesterday, as we get a look at Marcus Winkelhock's stricken car collection motorsport entry in the garage. But back to Sven Muller and Sturm. Well, we'll get a look at what happened to Winkelhock. He just went off the circuit, and not any imminent signs of damage from that off-track experience, but maybe there was something wrong with the car before that point. No contact that forced him off either. Just looked like he couldn't get the car turned around turn 5.
And you do wonder if maybe there was a bit of contact that's broken a suspension piece or something like that. But he is retired and out of this race. Mauro Engel leading the way from Jules Gounon. Remember, the front 2 cars are carrying that weight penalty. It doesn't seem to be affecting them too much because they have broken away from Frankie Bird. But really, Gounon is keeping Mauro Engel very much in his sights. It's not the runaway that we saw yesterday for the Yellow Mamba at the front. On board with Ben Green, who is in 10th place. And he is still looking at Dennis Marshall, trying to move his way back up the points order. And really, that BMW looking the quicker of the 2. Overtaking here at the Nürburgring is not easy. The best opportunity is coming up at turn 1 when they come along the pit straight under braking, and that provides the best opportunity for the cars to get past, and that's where Ben Green will no doubt be looking to line up Dennis Marshall.
I'm sure, given the pace of Green in this Schubert BMW this morning and what looks to be a fair chunk of pace in the race as well, they'll be looking for a strategy that allows them to undercut the rest of the field. It was an undercut for Sven Muller and Joel Sturm that put them into podium contention yesterday. Strategy all important in that 10-minute pit window, which begins at the 35-minute to go marker. 10 minutes in the middle of the race. There is Green, though, hustling the back of the Rutronic Racing Audi. Dennis Marshall under threat. Green up the inside and back into 9th position. The recovery drive, the salvation drive continues.
You get the feeling that Ben Green is fired up a bit, don't you? Right, next up the road to him is Konsta Lapalainen in the Lamborghini, the number 14 car. Still reeling from wonderful success at Zandvoort, but a little bit further back than they'd want to be in this race. And there is the Albert Costa Balboa car. He will be handing over to Jack Aitken later on. Jack Aitken is going to have a bit of a mountain to climb when he climbs into the seat of that car. Right, here's a replay, and that was Costa Balboa getting spun around, trying to have a look and to see what happened, and it all happened by the time they arrive on the scene. Now let's look back. Oh no, that's on board.
Yeah, I honestly don't think there was contact there. I think he got a wheel on the AstroTurf and the car just seemed unbalanced. The Mad Panda Motorsport car was the initial contact there on the back of the 8 car of Lucas Stoltz. He also sent the 28 flying of Christopher Haase for good measure. So that was a 2-for-1 deal, really, unfortunately. Perhaps not the one that they intended to purchase. But there you see just how difficult it is through this arena section on the first lap. We were walking it yesterday. It's such a tight section, perhaps not in width, but all of the corners, they follow each other into one, into the other. And on the first lap, with over 20 GT3 cars trying to find room, it's a very tricky thing. And Jack Aitken knows he has a very tricky afternoon ahead of him.
I'm pleased we haven't mic'd up the Emil Frey garage, that's for sure. There is a replay of Lucas Stoltz, his return to GT Masters. It was a good day yesterday with a 9th place, but not such a good day today. And you got to feel for Jan Marszałkowski. He's going to get a break one day. He really is. He's not even going to get to sit in that car today. And we really wish him good luck when they move on to the Lausitz Ring in a couple of weeks' time. He'll be wanting to put today behind him. There is our race leader, Mauro Engel. He's not breaking away from Jules Gounon. He is carrying that weight penalty, not as big a weight penalty for Gounon, who is in 2nd place, but they are pulling away still from Frankie Bird. It seems to be those 2 cars, Engel and Gounon, who are fighting each other. Lined up behind Frankie Bird is defending champion Christopher Mies. Mies a long way back in the standings and would love to get a good points haul. He's in a good position for that. Sven Muller in P5. He is sharing driving duties with Joel Sturm, who is getting a reputation as a bit of a charger. You can see the incident between car 8 and 28 is under investigation by our stewards. They have perspectives of this circuit that you wouldn't believe. Cameras at every angle, and there's a big team of stewards that work really hard, and if there is a penalty to be awarded, they will find it.
Absolutely, they will. It's a mighty fortress of screens and camera angles in race control. It is an all-Mercedes top 3 at this stage of the race. That man in the orange and black Audi, Christopher Mies, is currently the most likely to stop that. Ben Green, having already cleared and now driven off into the distance from Dennis Marshall, is challenging for 8th place. Costa Lapalainen, his next target.
Ben Green was so quick in qualifying this morning. He has got the bit between his teeth. He's a bit fed up because they had the amazing Red Bull Ring experience where they won 2 out of 2 races. As we look again at a replay of Christopher Haase taking a little shortcut across the gravel. But Ben Green then went on to Zandvoort with co-driver Niklas Kruten. Didn't have the best of times there. Looking to get his championship back on track. I predict that Ben Green will not finish in 9th place when this race is over. He is going to be pushing forwards. Looking at a replay again at the start of the race, it really was very crowded into turn 1.
Yeah, quite a few drivers there went seemingly, I don't know if before, but before the light, but certainly before a number of the drivers, in particular Vermeulen and Winkelhock, got absolutely swallowed by the order as they got underway, and we're taking a look at that start quite a long way afterwards. I wonder if that's been requested by a higher power. Sometimes that's the case.
Indeed, so we'll keep an eye on our messages from race control. We're keeping an eye on the timing screens. It's 8/10 between first and second, which in the grand scale of things is not a lot. There is 2.8 seconds between second and third, so the front 2 have broken clear a little bit. But the battle is certainly on for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th is Ben Green. Keep an eye on that black Schubert BMW. He is moving forwards. Christopher Mies now with a bit of space behind him, and car 28 under investigation. We saw that, the shortcut to turn 8, where he cut across where just before the chicane, the Ad Van Bogen turn.
Oh, it was actually turn 9 on the map that we're using. It's the first element of the Vidal chicane where he cut. Nonetheless, it was fairly egregious, so yes. I'm not surprised it's being investigated. Christopher Mies all over the back of Frankie Bird for now. These guys were sharing a pit lane last year in the GT World Challenge Sprint Cup for WRT. No love lost now, though, because they're representing different manufacturers and indeed different teams. Christopher Mies, the ultimate Audi man, has been racing on pretty much every continent sans Antarctica for Audi over the last decade or so. A great many of his best successes coming here in the ADAC GT Masters, not least of which last year's championship.
And indeed the 2016 championship as well. He is a driver who knows his way around here, as you already say, but he has yet to stand on the podium this year. Car investigation now has been changed to turn 10 for car 28. So interesting, that chicane yesterday in all the classes that are racing here, we saw drivers not even taking the chicane. They're just driving over it and getting airborne. Yeah. I think the stewards have had a bit of a powwow overnight, because in GT4 qualifying this morning, there were 22 lap times that I counted that were disallowed as a result of exceeding track limits. And I think they've said overnight, enough is enough. There was an awful lot of bodywork strewn around that chicane after yesterday's racing.
Quite possibly, he also failed to go to the left of the kind of white bollard curb that they have, which I think is probably the most damning sign of all, that perhaps the chicane has been ignored. Christopher Mies once again on the tail of Frankie Bird. Sven Muller has yet to find the pace to try and challenge, and also Ben Green has remained behind Costa Lapalainen at the moment in the 10 Schubert BMW. You see him in the back of shot. He's still flashing the headlights at Consta, but it seems as though perhaps maybe the best of the tyres or something else has just kind of eluded him in recent times, although that BMW is so strong, as I mentioned in the final sector, so strong in fact that he's suddenly challenging for 8th place every single time through that corner. He is quicker than anyone else, because for whatever reason, the M4 GT3 just loves mounting sausage curbs.
It really does, and it showed that at the Red Bull Ring. It's shown that again here. Ben Green putting the pressure on Consta Lapalainen. We are 20 minutes minutes into the race, and the entire field is still visible in one camera shot when we look along towards turn 10. That shows how competitive this series is. There is just 20 seconds separating first to last in this race. The car in third place is Frankie Bird, the number 84 Yellow Mamba, identical to the car that's leading the race, maybe a little bit lighter, but other than that, identical. But there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming round the corner, then the rest of the field.
Yes, a great order of cars. As always, the ADAC GT Masters provides some of the best action and the best driver lineups you'll find anywhere in GT racing, and that's why the field is quite so competitive. And it also means that sometimes we do end up with these stalemate situations because the field is so evenly matched, because the level of talent is so high. It's not as if you're going to get someone new in the car and it's going to descend through the order quite so quickly.
You saw Frankie Bird getting a little bit ragged out of turn 10. You saw the dust getting kicked up into the air, so clearly he is feeling the pressure from Christopher Mies. Now the question is going to be, what will the teams do in terms of strategy? Jules Gounon, well, the team of ZVO Drago Racing may wish to bring him in early to try and get an undercut on the pit stop, get Fabian Schiller into the seat and get him back out on open track. But the team will also be thinking to themselves that Jules Gounon is an experienced driver. They want to keep him in that seat for as long as possible. It's all about the strategy. Probably the same question for Ben Green and Nicholas Cruton as well. Do you bring them in, get them back out onto clear traffic and try and undercut some of the cars in front? We saw it done very successfully by Allied Racing yesterday. We may well see that today.
I'm wondering if the approach may be as simple as do the opposite of Engel at the number 4 camp. Whatever Engel does, we will do different, perhaps in an attempt to try and get a undercut. We saw Sven Muller doing that yesterday, and actually Jules Gounon was the first to say in the press conference yesterday, yeah, they probably had a point ultimately, didn't they? Ended up on the podium as a result, on the podium ahead of the ZVO number 4 car for good measure. This is a replay of lap number 1 and a replay of the contact that we had previously seen between Luca Engstler and Marcus Winkelhock. Probably shines a light on why Winkelhock is no longer in the race. Yeah, it was a big clump from the side, wasn't it? And you do wonder whether it has broken a toe link or something on that number 69 car, but that's into the garage, and Florian Spengler is not going to get a race today. There's the 1 and 2 going into turn 1 now. Christopher Mies just showing himself in the mirrors of Frankie Bird. It certainly wasn't an attempt to get past, maybe an attempt just to hassle him a little bit, force him into a mistake. The very, very experienced Christopher Mies, the not so experienced Frankie Bird, the two of them running together, and Mies going to start using all the tricks in the book to see if he can find a route past that yellow Mercedes in front of him. Good run out of turn 4 there. Turn 5 is one of the less likely overtaking zones. Realistically, the straight between 4 and 5 isn't long enough to necessarily make an overtaking move unless you get the mightiest of all runs out of 4. Mies not quite able to do so on that occasion. Jules Gounon still stalking behind Mauro Engel. You see there that Gounon is profiting on most laps, albeit not by much in terms of the gap between them. It just seems to ebb and flow naturally somewhere around the half-second barrier between the two of them at the moment. Christopher Mies still close behind Frankie Bird as well. We saw in the previous camera shot, but I don't think he was close enough for a move. No, he was not.
I'm keeping an eye on Sven Muller, who's behind Christopher Mies. 1.3 seconds was the gap last time around. Looks to me like he might be closing in on the duo in front of him. We'll let you know in just a few moments when they cross the line. You can see that it's half a second between first and second. Now let's have a look at the gap between Mies and Muller. No, he hasn't actually closed in that much. In fact, he's probably dropped about a tenth. So Muller not making the progress that I thought he was. Christopher Mies very solid in 4th place. So that just gives him a free hand to keep attacking Frankie Bird without risking losing a position. That is the sight of Raffaele Marciello getting ready to jump into the cockpit of that number 48 car. Knowing Marciello, he'll want to be in nice and early in this stint because he loves driving that thing. He wants to add the GT Masters title to his CV. He has never won this championship. It looked like it was slipping away from him this year. He's had a raft of co-driver changes. He now sits at the top of the points and he wants to take over from Mauro Engel and bring that car home.
Of course, he won the Spa 24 Hours last week. He won yesterday here along with Maro Engel. I'm not sure how often someone has taken 3 wins in major international GT3 competition within a 7-day period. But Raffaele Marciello could be about to make, if not history, certainly he will perform a rare act any moment. The pit window has just opened with 35 minutes left to run.
Are you trying to put a curse on Raffaele Marciello saying things like that? Commentators' curses, he will thank you for that. You saw Sven Muller ducking off into the pits to remind you it is a 65-second minimum pit stop time. Quite a few coming early. A significant one there is Christian Engelhardt, who will be handing over to Ayhan Can Guven. What are they going to do to get themselves up the order? Well, they're rolling the dice. Hopefully going to find themselves out on some clear track. Here comes Sven Muller. He is one of the front runners in the number 22 Allied Racing Porsche, keeping to the speed limit. Sven Muller, who will be handing over to the oncoming storm of Joel Sturm in the number 22 car. Here is Engelhardt, and that is Ayhan Guven. On your marks, get set, go! And he's got a seat insert in his hand, so it'll help Engelhardt, drag Engelhardt out of the car. New insert, because they're a different build, into the seat, squeeze himself in, adjust the steering wheel, buckle yourself up. Now Engelhardt helps Guven to get buckled up. The stops here are heavily regulated. Only 2 mechanics allowed to work on the car. So they'll be doing that, checking tyre pressures. Engelhardt helps him to get buckled up, plugged in, shuts the door, and now it's time for Ayhan Can Guven to take over all the hard work that Christian Engelhardt has done and get this thing back out on the track.
A few of these drivers, or a few teams, electing to bring them in at the first possible opportunity. One of them was the 63 ML Frey car as well. So Costa Balboa handing over to Jack Aitken as they exit the pits just ahead of the leading Mercedes. And that could be a bit of an issue here as Aitken comes back out. Cold brain, slightly cold tyres, and the 2 leaders just behind him. But I feel that so many cars have gone at the first possible opportunity that the undercut might be quite tricky, because they've got a kind of a little faction, a little group of their own now.
Yeah, there's going to be crowded where they've all come out together, isn't it? Jack Aitken, who's taken over from Albert Costa Balboa, well, we saw the steam coming out of his ears in the Emil Frey Racing garage. He will be motivated like nobody else to get back up the pack, and he will want to work his way forwards. Of course, behind him, as already mentioned, is the 3rd place Frankie Bird, and no, it's not, that's the leader, isn't it? That's Maro Engel and Jules Gounon. Frankie Bird was with him out on the track of Jack Aitken, and of course a lap down. There we go. But there is our leader, Maro Engel and Jules Gounon, and into the pits is Christian Engel, is Luca Engster taking over from Patrick Niederhauser, or indeed Patrick Niederhauser taking over from Luca Engster. Oh.
Yes, the only car to stop on that 2nd lap, actually. So let's see where he comes out relative to the rest of the order. We've already seen the number 22 car of Joel Sturm, the Porsche, go past him. I think he'll come out somewhere around Ricardo Feller. The 2 leaders, though, are in the pit lane.
So here they come. It's Maro Engel getting ready to hand over for Raffaele Marciello. It is Jules Gounon. We wondered if they might come in at different times. They've ended up coming in exactly the same time. There is the minimum pit stop time. Is there going to be an opportunity to jump with a fraction of a second? You get it wrong, you're going to have a red P next to your name, just like Patrick Niederhauser have, and that means that he has gone below the minimum pit stop time. I think it might have been by just a second.
A tenth.
A tenth of a second. Stewards will be looking at that. He may well get a penalty lap for his troubles, but we're keeping an eye on 1st and 2nd. So you have Raffaele Marciello and Fabian Schiller, who's taken over in the number 4 car. Raffaele Marciello is further back in the pit lane. He's rolling. Fabian Schiller, they're holding him, and go. It's going to be very much as you were into the pit lane. Well, that's about the gap that was between them when they came in, I think. Marciello is going to be in front, and Fabian Schiller, well, he's going to have to think of something pretty clever to get in front. And look who's coming in the background. It is, once again, the Allied Racing Porsche that has done a really good job of the pit stop, coming through in the background. And the number 22 of Joel Sturm is in the battle at the front of the pack.
That could well be a net third place, couldn't it, for Sturm later on? But we'll have to see once the window is shut. Perhaps the likes of Frankie Bird and Christopher Mies may end up in there. Christopher Mies is into the pits, as is Ben Green. Meanwhile, we speculated that Niederhauser may be in trouble. Penalty lap because of the pit stop time. Quite a harsh one that it was, just 1/10 of a second. He's going to lose probably 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds to the penalty lap. But rules are there for a reason. Yeah. And rules involving time are often very easy to regulate.
And it's so tight, the pit stops. You know that you can win or lose a race on 1/10 of a second, and every 10th counts. They just ran a little bit too close to the wind. You can see Niklas Kruten climbing on board the number 10 Schubert Motorsport BMW M4. Christopher Mies is going to be handing over to Tim Zimmermann. He's got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders as he takes over the wheel of the Monteplas by Land Motorsport Audi. He gets rolling. He's back out into the fast lane of the pits. In the background, you can see the stationary car that will be driven by Niklas Kruten. Here come the leaders. You can see how far back Tim Zimmermann is. Where will he be in relation to Joel Sturm? Well, the answer to that is in front of Joel Sturm. So there is the number 1 car, Tim Zimmermann, who I would say probably third place when all is said and done in these pit stops, with Joel Sturm behind. Here comes Niklas Kruten in the BMW. Now maybe through the pit stop sequence they will have undone some of the damage that earlier on and work their way up the pack a little bit.
I'm interested to see quite where Maxi Goertz ends up at the end of this. He's staying out right until the end. Of course, he'll hand over to Perez Companc, but I am intrigued to see where the Mad Panda car ends up, because Goertz has been setting some pretty good lap times out there at the wheel of the number 90 Mercedes. We'll see whether he can maybe work his way into the top 10 or hand the car over in a top 10 position by the end.
So there are just over 3 minutes remaining of the pit stop window. Anybody who hasn't pitted will need to. It's Maxi Goertz who's leading the way at the moment, but he still has to make that stop. And Konsta Lappalainen in second, Dennis Marschall, Jesse Krohn and Norbert Siedler. But they all have to visit the pit, so they will drop down the order of the cars that have pitted and come back onto the track. It's Marciello who leads the way from Fabian Schiller, Tim Zimmermann, Joel Sturm, Niklas Kruten. Now we will see where the rest of these cars file in. Frankie Bird is handed over to Elias Seppänen out of the pit lane. He comes. That looks like back into third place for the other of the yellow Mambas. Here comes one of the Lamborghinis. That'll be Konsta Lappalainen. There is Joel Sturm.
Elias Seppänen with the all bad red P. A 104.8, 64.8 seconds. He's 2/10 shy of a legal pit stop. I think we know what comes next.
This is absolutely tragic for Elias Seppänen, looking for his first podium in ADAC GT Masters, looking at a replay of a little bit of rallycross going on. Now, who's that's the 33 car, isn't it? Vermeulen and Aynchan Guven making a move up the inside. Vermeulen just going wide, kicking up the dirt, creating a large dust cloud across the Nürburgring, and it is Guven who finds a route through. Now, where is Aynchan Guven after all this? Well, we'll wait until the pit stops are over, then we'll give you some proper positions here. You can see the Mad Panda in, Maxi Goertz handing over to Ezequiel Perez Companc. The Mercedes comes to a stop at the moment, but in fourth, you'll see them drop down the order, obviously, as they wait for that pit stop clock to count down. Door shut, engine will soon fire up, and that car will be out of the pit lane. That's everybody apart from Dennis Marschall, who has pitted so far. Marschall will need to pit next time around. If he misses the pit window, there will be a hefty penalty incoming.
Jesse Krohn has also yet to stop in that number 20 Schubert BMW. He's been pounding in the lap times. 48 under investigation for blocking in pit lane. That is Raffaele Marciello. So that could be a big deal. That's, of course, what we saw with the number 4 car earlier on. Battling, though, as Maxi Goertz rejoins the race just ahead of a pair of Raging Bulls. The Emil Frey Lamborghinis and the 14 car of Wieshofer onto the AstroTurf. Did very well to keep that in something close to a straight line. line. He does, however, lose position to Frank Pereira, and Maxi Gertz gets out ahead of both of them.
In fact, Maxi Gertz has got out of the car completely. It's Ezequiel Perez behind that one. But yes, Ezequiel Perez has taken over Maxi Gertz. And you can see the number 14 car, Mick Wiesover, getting a bit of wobble on, sliding around the corner and losing a bit of time. We're keeping an eye on this penalty that has flashed up under investigation. A pit stop time, car 84, and under investigation, blocking in the pit lane, car 48. Both yellow Mambas are under investigation.
Oh dear, the man filter Mambas being looked into at the moment. Then we've got 3 cars in the pits, the final 3 cars in the pit lane. Kim Louis Schramm, who we see in the corner of our screen, Nikki Katzberg taking over the number 20 Schubert BMW, and Reicher taking over the 54 Audi as well. The dueling Emil Frey Lamborghinis continue on then. It seems as though Perez Companc has a little bit more pace than them in the early stages of this stint. But Zimmerman, Zimmerman is slowing. The lights are off. I think he's Control-Alt-Deleting as we speak.
So Tim Zimmerman, who was running so strongly, having taken over Christopher Mies, that car is well off the pace into turn 1. It is still running, so as you suggested, it may have been switch off and switch it on again.
I think that's exactly what happened, because no sooner did I say the lights were off than they flickered back on, and it now seems that it's accelerating somewhat normally, but it looked like it was slowing again through turn 2. Nonetheless, clearly something wrong for him, and there was something wrong with the pit stop for the car 84, a penalty lap for a slightly short pit stop for Elias Seppänen, and he may well end up losing his current 6th position.
We will keep an eye also.
Position, sorry.
Yes, indeed. We will keep an eye on the lead car as well. And let's have a look here. Now, was this a blocking maneuver? I didn't think it was. He was in the fast lane. He was on his way. I can't believe that would be worth a penalty, would it?
He did lift just as he went past. You saw the car shudder as he hopped off the pit limiter for a moment. He definitely did lift out the throttle a little bit. You can see him doing it a couple of times. That is very compelling and a very good spot from the powers that be.
That's a very good spot from you. And what are you trying to say about Raffaele Marciello? I mean, it's not to win at any expense, is it?
You're really trying to get me beaten up, aren't you? Goodness me.
Yes. Raffaele Marciello currently leads Fabian Schiller by just a fraction under a second. He is under investigation for a possible blocking in the pit lane. There is some debris on the track that Elias Seppänen was avoiding. Has he served his penalty lap? I don't think he has.
That's what he just did.
That was him just coming back the other side of that debris, was it?
Yeah.
So Elias Seppänen back into it. He hasn't lost a position, has he? Oh yes, he's lost 1. So
yes.
Joe Sturm has nipped past him. So Elias Seppänen, such a shame, looking down the barrel of potentially first ever podium in GT Masters, but for a fraction of a second in the pits, and the yellow Mamba suddenly loses a position. It could have been worse in days gone by. That might well, or years gone by, that may well have been a drive-through penalty. But Sven Stopper, our race steward, trying to make the penalties a little bit more appropriate. And the penalty box is a wonderful way of awarding a penalty without utterly destroying somebody's race.
I'll tell you what, it was a good performance from... Well, it says Jesse Krohn on the timing screen, but it is Nikki Katzberg at the wheel. Jesse Krohn did a great job of getting that car up into 9th place, ultimately, with the undercut. So he's given Katzberg the car in a very good position, actually in front of the other Schubert BMW of Nicholas Cruton. Bear in mind, Katzberg's car started 19th and Cruton's started in 7th. So that's not how I'd have expected the Schuberts to look halfway through the race.
No, absolutely. So the 2 Schubert Motorsport BMWs running together on the track, and Cruton looking very much under pressure from Max Paul. Cruton currently running in 10th place. Max Paul, though, putting the heat on. Just to summarise where we're at after the pit stops is Raffaele Marciello, who leads the way from Fabian Schiller, Joel Sturm in 3rd, Elias Seppänen in 4th after that penalty box visit. Ezequiel Perez Companc, if he can finish in 5th place, he will be utterly jubilant about that after the year he's had. 6th place, Kim Louis Schramm in the number 27 car, Frank Pereira in 7th, and then Mick Wiesover, Jesse Krohn and Niklas Cruton in 10th place. That's who we're watching at the moment, with Max Paul behind him. Ian Chen Guven all the way down in 12th place. Tim Zimmerman, after the Control-Alt-Delete, down in 13th, and Patrick Niederhauser ahead of Simon Riker, Salmon Vega, Thierry Vermeulen, and Jack Aitken all the way down in 18th, ahead of Yusuf Vega.
Yeah, not a good showing for the 63 Emil Frey team again. If they've been successful, they've been very successful. But unfortunately, they've largely just been troubled so far this year. Max Paul has no trouble cutting over the curves at turn 10 and 9 and 10, the Vidal chicane, and that's allowed him past the number 10. So into 10th place has gone Max Paul as they continue to scrap for the position. But the BMW's straight line speed kicks in once more, and to the outside of turn 1 goes Niklas Kruten. He darts in the head of the car. Very good awareness there. He knew he was just about all the way ahead, but he didn't get the car stopped. They're still side by side as they go through turn 2, and Niklas Kruten just about retains 10th place. But here comes Max Paul again. It will never end. Max Paul dives up the inside, and now definitively, at least for a few corners, he is into 10th place.
I should think Ben Green is probably in the Schubert Motorsport garage watching from behind a cushion. The number 71 car in front at the moment, Kruten. He has been a revelation in GT3 racing. I think it's fair to say he didn't set the world on fire in Formula 4, but in GT3 he really has found his niche, and he has been red hot, particularly in the Schubert Motorsport BMW. And here he is, challenging so hard, racing the relatively more experienced Max Paul and giving him a good run for his money. The problem is he's got Ayhancan Guven behind him, and Guven is desperate for points. Ayhancan Guven and Christian Engelhardt have been finishing in the points in every race bar one this year. In fact, they've finished in the top 8 in every race bar one this year. That is why they're at the near top of the point standings, and he needs to get back into the championship hunt. So Ayhancan Guven will soon be monstering the Niklas Kruten BMW.
And so then, as this race continues to unfold, we did see just now on the screen as well a lap ago, as it was all kicking off between Paul and Niklas Kruten, that we crossed the €25,000 marker in the B-Water mission for Africa.
Indeed, the BWT and ADAC jointly donating €4 per lap to the B-Water mission, and that is providing clean drinking water in mainly rural areas of the Gambia and Tanzania. Really good job by the BWT and ADAC. Last year they donated 60 grand to the B-Water mission. Love to see us beat that this year. Keep your eyes peeled, because that might well happen. The ADAC have a habit towards the end of the season of maybe doubling the money, not putting any pressure on them or anything. But remember last year, chaps. Marciello leading the way from Fabian Schiller. Oh dear, I better look for a new job. Joel Sturm in 3rd, Elias Seppänen in 4th. This battle that we're looking at here, Niklas Kruten in 11th place, and a penalty lap for our race leader. Raffaele Marciello has received a penalty lap for blocking in the pit lane. It's gonna be really difficult for him to make this a back-to-back win. Keep an eye on the body language of Marciello. He is not backwards in showing his feelings. He will be steaming about that. The number 48 car is going to have to go into the penalty box. Here it comes. Here's Fabian Schiller into the lead of the race. Joe Sturm will also be lining it up. Avoid the debris. Marciello rejoins. I don't think Sturm has got past. So Marciello into 2nd place. It's because of this. Well spotted by the man next to me, Adam Weller. He saw that Marciello went past and then lifted off.
Just watch the car shudder just there. That's the sign of the car hopping off and back on and off and back on the limiter. He's trying to modulate the speed carefully to just try and lose a few kilometers an hour for Schiller, and it's bitten him in a major way. Fabian Schiller is now our race leader. Mauro Engel shaking his head. And well, isn't this an interesting turn of events? Jules Gounon yesterday was very open in the fact that it was a difficult couple of meetings for the ZVO team in both Zandvoort and the Red Bull Ring. They've resolved the issues they felt they had previously, and if they can get to the top step of the podium today, I think that will suddenly put Gounon and indeed Fabian Schiller right back into contention.
The fat lady isn't singing yet. Keep an eye on Raffaele Marciello in 2nd place. He will be steaming as he tries to reel in Fabian Schiller, and Schiller will know all about it if Marciello arrives on his back bumper. So that penalty penalty lap has been served. It's relegated him from the lead. We're looking at Max Paul taking a shortcut across the chicane, and that may well attract the attention of the stewards as well. Max Paul, who is down in 10th place. Niklas Kruten still fighting him. This is a replay of the two cars swapping positions. Niklas Kruten, though, he is still fighting and fighting against the number 71 Lamborghini. Here he is, a replay of him. It's turn 1 on the outside. Just pure grunt. He doesn't just shut the door, he actually slams it in the face of Max Paul, tries to squeeze him. Max Paul says, hey, you want to see what state my car was in after yesterday's race? I wouldn't do that if I were you, mate. So he works his way through, elbows out. We look again now at our race leader. Now, Fabian Schiller leading the way. We'll look at the gap when they cross the line next time round, and then we will see what Raffaele Marciello can do in the last 15 minutes of this race.
Marciello a few hundredths of a second slower in the long sector 1, 3 thousandths of a second faster in sector 2, so it's not really falling in Marciello's favour on this first lap back at speed after the penalty lap on the previous lap. So let's see whether Marciello's pace can match that of Fabian Schiller. We continue to watch the screen with bated breath for that information. We also watch as Ian Chan Guven hounds the back of Niklas Kruten, having had the scrap with Max Paul several laps ago. We're now into another scrap, this time Kruten versus Guven. The gap between Schiller and Marciello, 2.7 seconds. The lap time for Schiller just under a tenth quicker.
Just remind you that Kruten and Guven are both in the championship hunt, very much at the sharp end, and so they mean real business when they are fighting each other. The gap between first and second is 2.764. We're going to make a note of that, see where that goes after this lap. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on that battle, 12th and 11th place, Niklas Kruten in front of that at the moment, ahead of Kruten. Max Paul has just broken away a little, but you can see how close Guven is getting as he tries to work his way past the Schubert Motorsport BMW. Going very wide out of the corner, but still keeping it all together. So we keep an eye on what is happening with the leader as well. And Guven goes deep into the corner, and suddenly that's allowed Tim Zimmermann through. So Ian Chan Guven, you don't often see him making a mistake in a Porsche, but he went deep into the corner, and that was the only invitation that Zimmermann need, and the Audi is through.
Yeah, just couldn't get the car stopped. I think he outbraked himself a little bit there, and Zimmermann saw the opportunity and immediately took it. So then Zimmermann up to 12th place, Guven down to 13th, and now under pressure from Patrick Niederhauser for good measure. Still in a position that isn't going to help their championship campaign.
I thought it was going to let Niederhauser through as well. In fact, Niederhauser still thinks he's coming through. You do wonder whether Ian Chan Guven may be in desperation, just trying a little bit too hard in that Porsche. Trying to pick up points. The points are paid down to 15th position, so he is in a points position at the moment. But unfortunately for him, his main rivals are all ahead of him. There's Niklas Kruten, who is one of his main rivals, a couple of cars ahead of him. One of his big rivals, Raffaele Marciello, is in second place, but he is dropping back from Fabian Schiller, because last time around Schiller had opened up a gap of half a second on Raffaele Marciello. So any thoughts that Marciello might be closing in on the lead of this race? Well, it's not happening at the moment, and we've got a little over 12 minutes plus 1 lap remaining for that to change.
I know we've had a pit window during this race already, but I don't feel like we've done more than 15 minutes. This has been great racing so far. You see there that the 33 car from Mullen carrying some damage there. I don't think we've seen exactly how that came to pass, but I'm not sure that aero kit's going to take for 2023.
So Thierry Vermeulen, who is down in 18th place at the moment, so really scrapping over the scraps, certainly out of the points, and that aerodynamic disadvantage is not going to help him at all. The car may well receive a black and orange flag calling him into the pits if the race stewards decide that that is a hazard with that piece of bodywork hanging up in the air. We're looking again at the Wales in Africa total, €25,952. We'll have some of that. The incident between car 33 and 29 is under investigation. That is use of a Vega and Thierry Vermeulen, and as suspected, Vermeulen is into the pit lane. Now it's going to be one of 3 things. It's either going to be tear the wing off, it's either going to be retire the car, or it's going to be apply loads of gaffer tape. That's the normal racing answer to these problems.
It is indeed. The structural integrity of gaffer tape knows no bounds, Yes, unfortunately, the carbon fibre has given under the stress. An incident at turn 1. We didn't see the incident, but given they were running together as we cut to them and we saw this damage, you can infer what may or may not have happened. I'm sure we'll get a look at it in a replay in the not too distant future. That's rather well lodged into where the headlight should be, and I get the feeling that this is a day over situation. Yes.
Yes, I think Thierry Vermeulen, there's no urgency there. They've decided they're not going to dip into the World Gaffer Tape resources. That car being retired, I think it was always going to be a long stretch to get it back into the points standings. There is the third place, Joel Sturm. He has been doing a great job all season long in the number 22 Porsche. He came up from GT4, the ADAC GT4 series, and has really shone in this category. He has a great friend and mentor in Sven Muller as his co-driver, but he was impressive from the moment we got the first green flag at Oschersleben. If you don't know what I mean, go back and watch race 1 from Oschersleben, because the opening lap there was something to behold. The oncoming storm in third place, Elias Seppinen, Ezequiel Perez-Campagne, and then Kim Louis Schramm, who we're watching here, who is under pressure from Mick Wieshofer in the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini. That's 6th and 7th. In the background is Franck Pereira, another of the Emil Frey Lamborghinis. And now where's Jack Aitken? Still out of the points in 17th place. He will not be chuffed about that.
No, he will not. Wieshofer has had one podium so far this year. It was a win, of course. Other than that, they've kind of not troubled the top 10 that often. They got the 7th place at the season opener at Oschersleben, and it is 7th place that car is in currently. Wieshofer would like to get himself into the top half dozen if he can, and he sees Bilstein has the opportunity to do it, and he's done a great job there, capitalising on a perhaps slightly lax Kim Louis Schramm. He wasn't going defensive into Bilstein. Not a common overtaking move, so I see why perhaps he didn't see it coming, but Wieshofer, a man of many surprises, clearly.
So Rutronic Racing, the Audi team who won the championship in 2019, not finding it too easy here in the number 27 car as the number 14 of Mick Wieshofer goes sailing through. Emil Frey moving up through the order. Next up the road will be Ezequiel Perez-Campagne. So Ezequiel Perez-Campagne in 5th place, quite a long way up the road from them, and he looking for his best result in GT Masters. There is our race leader, Fabian Schiller. He and Jules Gounon for Drago Racing Team ZVO did take a win in the season opener at Oschersleben, but have been fairly mediocre ever since then, until yesterday, where they picked up a 3rd place. And still, they carry on leading the way now. The Raffaele Marciello car, the yellow Mamba in 2nd place, still not closing in on the lead car. You saw the graphic on your screen earlier, and there's not much going on. In less than 8 minutes, that's going to see the yellow Mamba back in the lead, unless there is drama for Fabian Schiller.
Lost over half a second on the last lap alone, it did Raffaele Marciello. I think he's somewhat resigned to 2nd place here, but that's still good points over a car in the Fabian Schiller Jules Gounon ZVO Mercedes that isn't necessarily a direct championship contender right now. So perhaps Raffaele thinking about the championship here. 2nd place, more than good enough, particularly after a very difficult weekend at Zandvoort where he scored just 2 points.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Raffaele Marciello knows the meaning of settling for 2nd place, but we'll soon find out about that. Keeping an eye on Elias Seppinen in 4th place and Joel Sturm. Let's just see what the gap is there. He has taken a 10th out of Joel Sturm on that lap, so he is closing, probably not rapidly enough to catch him within the next 7 minutes plus 1 lap, unless Joel Sturm has some kind of drama. That could easily happen, what with traffic and all sorts of other things going on. Drama, also Ayhanchek Guven, that's what he needs in front of him, because he's got Tim Zimmermann that he's trying to attack, but every time he has a look at the number 1 car, remember that got he snuck past in that moment where Guven had the mistake. Every time he looks, Patrick Niederhauser, it pokes his nose in and says, I'll have some of that, thank you very much. So Patrick Niederhauser monstering Ayhanchek Guven and finds a gap on the inside out of turn 11. They come and they run side by side briefly, and now in front.
Yeah, so a good move out of the Mercedes arena there from Patrick Niederhauser. I was amazed with how much momentum he carried coming out of the corner. Set himself up very nicely. Let's take a look at this one again. So into the apex at 3 goes Guven, and he just leaves the door open. Niederhauser had the momentum. Guven had no choice but to run it out wide and watch Niederhauser disappear past him. The bad gets worse for the 91 crew, but he's right back on the attack.
So Jan Guven, a man who knows Porsche inside out, into the Vidal chicane he comes, this time heading towards turn 10 and towards turn 11, out onto the pit straight. But Guven is a long way back. He's not going to get much of a slipstream and an opportunity to pass into turn 1. He has dropped back. Patrick Niederhauser's got a few legs in that Audi, albeit in 14th position. You see the number 10 of Niklas Kruten, 11th place there, with Tim Zimmermann just behind. And then comes this battle we've been following, which is Ian Guven with the number 15, Patrick Niederhauser, in front of him. This is a battle will probably rage for the next 5 minutes. We are in race 8 of a 14-race season for the ADAC GT Masters 2022, the second half of the season starting today. And there is the driver that is leading the way, Fabian Schiller. A long way back is Raffaele Marciello, now 4.4 seconds behind, so certainly not doing anything about closing the gap. We're looking again at a replay. Now this is a different angle on what was perceived to be the blocking. Yeah, it's very hard to know.
You can even hear it actually just dipping RPM as he trundles out.
We listened, maybe the stewards had a microphone down there as well. Yes, well, that's it is what it is. Marciello has had that penalty. Mauro Engel, well, you're never going to see anybody look less fed up, more fed up about running in second place than that, because he knows that should have been a win, really. And you would say that Raffaele Marciello, if he did lift off, he really didn't need to, because they had the legs on Fabian Schiller. They were going to come out and have track position, which would have been everything.
It's the kind of gamesmanship that you do see in a lot of places, and sometimes, only sometimes, it does fly under the radar. But yeah, in the position he was in, it maybe wasn't completely necessary, or it certainly wasn't completely necessary, but still, second place where he's currently due to finish is good, and this could still be a landmark weekend for him as long as all finishes as is now in his 2022 championship campaign. Looking back to the pack for 7th place, headed by Kim Louis Schramm, Frank Pereira, Nikki Katzberg and Max Paul following him at the moment.
We did just see the Mad Panda coming through our picture, and directly behind him was Mick Wieshofer in the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini, starting to put the pressure on his equal Perez Companc. So he is going to have his mirrors full of Lamborghini in the last few minutes of this race. We look further back, and there is Nikki Katzberg in the number 20 BMW, celebrating 50 years of the M Series in BMW with the special livery. And Katzberg, well, for the first time in a long time, ahead of fellow Schubert Motorsport BMW of Niklas Kruten, which is down in 11th.
I must say, in regard to that Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes, I said that I thought, oh, Zimmermann slowing again. Zimmermann once again, he's now well out of contention, of course, but again the car seems to be in limp mode. He's considering the pit lane. He decides to try and get the car running, but no, he decides that I think it's time to call the car in. Points are out of question. Another huge blow to Christopher Mies's attempt at title defence. But I just want to say as well, regarding that Mad Panda car, Perez Companc up in 5th, I thought Gertz would get them into the top 10. Didn't think the top 5. Let's see if Perez Companc can hold on.
And that is why they wanted Maxi Gertz in the team. You can see Zimmermann in the pit lane now. He doesn't need much effort to keep below the speed limit, does he? It looked like he was going to try and carry on, and if that had happened and the car had stopped on the pit straight, we would have seen this race finishing behind a safety car. So we're quite pleased that he did duck into the pit lane. But the number 1 Monteplas by Land Audi has failed at the last post and retired into the garage. There's our race leader, leader, Fabian Schiller. He's got a big gap over Raffaele Marciello. It was 5.5 seconds last time around. It's probably going to be even bigger. Look, though, behind Joel Sturm has Elias Sepinen for company. Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc has Mick Viso from company. The top 5, top 6 of this race is by no means decided. Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc into turn 11. Visofer taking a little look up the inside. Cabanc being quite brutal in slamming the door in his face.
Very much so, absolutely not. You can't have my 5th position. Visofer, of course, there in 6th place for now, but is he going to dart to the inside late on the approach to turn 1? No, not quite. Of course, Visofer was the... up the inside, sorry, yes, keep going. This battle, I thought it had stopped for a moment. I was very wrong.
No, Visofer is not going to stop this battle until he sees that checkered flag, is he? Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc, well, 6th place would be a result after the year they've had, but 5th place would be even better. Up ahead of them, Elias Sepinen is also challenging Joel Sturm. So suddenly, in the last 30 seconds plus 1 lap of this race, it's coming alive. We're going to have about a lap and a half left for our race leader, Fabian Schiller. But look at this battle for 5th place. Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc, the Mad Panda in the black and white Mercedes, fighting with Mick Visofer in the Emil Frey Lamborghini.
And Perez-Cabanc will be particularly keen on not letting Visofer through. Don't forget, they led race 1 briefly at Zandvoort, and the car that ultimately won race 1 was Mick Visofer's number 14 Emil Frey Lamborghini. That could have been theirs if they were on the right tyres. Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc will be thinking he will want to maintain this 5th place.
This time it's personal, and we wanted to see the scary-ass Mad Panda on the podium. If you don't know what I mean, check out their page. There is a very scary giant panda that accompanies them, but it's not going to be in this race, I don't suppose. But 5th place will be a result that they would be very happy with. Just behind them is Kim Louis Schramm and Frank Pereira and Nikki Katzberg fighting, still going on up and down the pack. The clock has struck 0. Where is our leader? I think it had struck 0 before he crossed the line, so this should be the one more lap after this, the penultimate lap. Teach me if we're not watching the monitor, won't it? Right on bottom of Jed Guven, who is in 13th place, and Patrick Niederhauser, well, he's been fighting with that Audi for much of the race, and ahead of them, Niklas Kruten in the points, but not with as many points as he would have liked. That's the view looking back at Patrick Niederhauser's Audi. The 3 cars very much glued together.
Yeah, once again, Guven seems to be in the midst of battle. He's had a very entertaining race from our perspective, perhaps a perspective of the fans here at the Nürburgring, but it hasn't been a particularly useful race for the title attempt from he and Christian Engelhardt, or indeed the youth team. So Guven may be wanting to try and get past these 2 in the closing stages, but that's so much easier said than done. Kruten, the cork in the bottle, Niederhauser there, wanting to move up for Retronic. Let's see if Ian Chan Guven can profit at all as they go on to the last lap. The Mad Panda car still endangered for 5th place at the moment. Here comes Visofer. Can he get the run out the last corner?
No, it doesn't look like he can, because the Mad Panda is the widest Mercedes on the whole circuit. Look at them running into the corner. Visofer has the outside line. Now this is a fast line into turn 1. Visofer trying to go the long way round, but under braking. Cabanc runs really wide into the corner, shuts the door on Mick Visofer, who then is forced to back out of it. So Perez-Cabanc still in front. He's got to keep this together for about 3/4 of a lap. Ezequiel Perez-Cabanc in 5th place. Mick Visofer behind. Kim Louis Schramm has closed in on this battle. He could still make some places, as could Frank Pereira, particularly if these 2 cars get together. At the front, Fabian Schiller is on his final lap. He's leading the way. I never thought these words would leave my mouth, but Raffaele Marciello is probably settling for 2nd. Joel Sturm in 3rd. They are into the final chicane for the last time. Fabian Schiller leading the way into turn 10, into turn 11, out of the final corner. It's Fabian Schiller along with co-driver Jules Gounon, who take the win for Drago Racing Team ZVO here for race race 8 of the 14-race season in the ADAC GT Masters. Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel crossing the line in second place to fight for third, while Joel Sturm crosses the line there with Sven Muller, Elias Seppen and Frankie Burt in fourth, and it looks like Ezequiel Perez, Kabak and Maxi Goetz are going to win the fight for fifth place. They'll be delighted with that, ahead of Mick Wieshofer and Konsta Lappalainen. Kim Louis Schramm alongside Dennis Marshall in seventh place, and then it's Franck Pereira and Arthur Rougier who are in eighth, Nikki Katzberg and Jesse Krohn in ninth, and Max Paul in the number 71 car with Marco Mappelli in 10th place. So great racing there, and lots of celebration in the ZVO Drago Racing Team pit area. Wow, that was exciting. It was a very quick hour, wasn't it?
It was indeed. A victory then for Fabian Schiller, for Drago ZVO, and the number 4 car. Podium number 4 of the season for Raffaele Marciello, but that body language suggests it's not going to be a particularly well-received second place trophy.
That camera angle never fails to entertain. Never will you see anybody more disappointed about finishing in second place. Raffaele Marciello, you saw him just throwing his hands in the air. Mauro Engel looking frustrated. Talking to a famous person there in the pits, Norbert Haug in the Mercedes garage. And here is a replay of them crossing the line. But Marciello must be inside, realise that his championship lead will have extended significantly. Of course, Mauro Engel not in the championship hunt, having just joined the team for this race, but Raffaele Marciello. And yeah, you may throw your hands in the air, but you've just extended your championship lead significantly. Raffaele Marciello very much in the box seats for the German GT Championship title when this season comes to a close.
I think Joel Sturm and Sven Muller will have found themselves a lot further up the order with that third place finish as well in the championship standings. Here is the order, though, of the race.
Fabian Schiller and Jules Gounon taking the win in the Drago Racing Team ZVO Mercedes, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and Mauro Engel in the Man Filter Team Landgraf Mercedes. Then it's Joel Sturm alongside Sven Muller rounding out the 1, 2, 3. Here are the remainder of the positions, scrolling very quickly through your screen. Spare a thought for Lucas Stolz and Jan Marszałkowski, another DNF for that team. Into Parc Fermé we come, the 1, 2, 3 now. There is Raffaele Marciello, and he clearly disagrees with the decision that was made, and there will be discussions about that, no doubt, into the night. Mauro Engel also not looking terribly excited, but a first and a second, that is not bad going for a weekend's work, is it?
It definitely isn't, no. Fabian Schiller should be very happy with his work there. Throughout that stint, he was one of, if not the fastest car out on the circuit on old tyres in that race. The race pace very good for the young driver who is in the junior class, lest we forget as well. So he is a young developing talent. There are the point standings after that race.
Yeah, Marciello and 16 points ahead of Gounon and Schiller. Engelhardt and Guven now down to third place, 24 points adrift. It just shows you how quickly this can all come undone. Ben Green, Niklas Kruten were championship leaders at one point, now down in fifth place, 31 points adrift. It really is such a competitive series. Now we know that Raffaele Marciello is not going to have Mauro Engel alongside him for every event this year. At least we think we know. So that has been the potent combination. Marciello will need to make hay while the sun shines. So this is not a dead cert, but he's certainly put himself in a very strong position in the championship standings.
Yeah, they have a couple of candidates for the next 2 rounds, but they're not sure quite whom yet. We know that Mauro has already secured for Hockenheim. He made that public himself, that we'll see him again at the end of the season, at the season finale, and bringing themselves into second in the points with this win. Schiller and Gounon. I must admit, my mental arithmetic failed me there. I wasn't expecting to be quite so high up the standings, but firm championship contenders in the first season for Drago Racing Team ZVO.
Yes, they weren't really in the running, and but it just shows how close it is. Nobody is running away with it, and suddenly Gunon and Schiller are back in the running. I know when we spoke to Jules Gunon at Oschersleben and they'd had a rubbish race 1, he was looking pretty frustrated. He's sounding frustrated. After Red Bull Ring, well, you didn't want to go near him. But then suddenly, Zandvoort race 2, and then yesterday they've come alive. Maybe it takes a little while for a partnership as well to develop. Jules Gunon with Fabian Schiller in that Drago Racing Team ZVO Mercedes. Of course, that's a team that's come from the ashes of Zach Speed Racing, and they are starting to gel as a team, gel as a driver duo, and suddenly the results are starting to show. Just listening in. No, that's
a blessing.
Yes, it's probably just better that it's not in English. Yes. So, looking subdued, but very much no reason to be. Marciello and Engel in that second place, now heading up towards the podium, and we will see their ceremony very shortly. Let's just review where we're at. Joel Sturm and Sven Muller for Allied Racing in the Porsche 911 GT3R coming home in 3rd position. Second place went to the car that picked up the penalty, one leading the race. Raffaele Marciello, Mauro Engel for the Man-Filter Team Landgraf Mercedes AMG GT3. And it's another Mercedes AMG GT3 that wins the race. Fabian Schiller and Jules Gunon for Drago Racing Team ZVO, taking the top step of the podium. So some very ecstatic looking drivers under the blue skies here at the Nürburgring. What a way to kick off the second half of the season with a race win to go with the 3rd place that they had yesterday. And spare a thought for the other yellow Mamba. Had it not been for that penalty, Elias Seppänen and Frankie Bird may well have found themselves on the podium as well. Certainly very rapid, and they must be pretty pleased with that 4th place, even if it wasn't for the podium. There's Joel Sturm and Sven Muller in the cool-down room. And just there on their own at the moment, getting a very well-earned drink. It is very hot here at the Nürburgring this weekend. And just reflecting on what has been a really solid performance. So Joel Sturm and Sven Muller, well, they got a 2nd yesterday. They got a 3rd in the season opener in Oschersleben. They've been there or thereabouts most of the races this year. Oschersleben race 2 was their worst result so far, a 14th, but on the whole, finishing around the top 5 in every race.
It's been a great result for the Man-Filter guys today, hasn't it? Both of them in the top 5. As you say, I think they won't be best pleased with the fact they didn't make the podium, although they are up there towards the podium, aren't they? So joining for moral support, perhaps, or rather the junior podium,
of course, the junior podium
that follows afterwards, but also moral support.
Indeed.
I'm sure it is a friendly garage among the 3 there. You see my favourite sponsor on the entire grid, which is Frank Bird Poultry. Exceptional.
But yeah, you couldn't make it up, could you? Yes, indeed. So there we are. And Dave Cow Beef as well. Yes, indeed. So, yes, the 4 Man-Filter Team Landgraf drivers sat together, testing the strength of that table and just waiting. I say again, Elias Seppänen, he was really competitive in ADAC Formula 4 a couple of years ago. And he has come on in leaps and bounds, come into the GT3 categories, leapt up to the top level very quickly. And with Frankie Bird, he's really found a very strong teammate. Really hope we're going to see both of them for a long time to come in this series. Nobody's looking particularly ecstatic about their result today, are they? It's just something we don't know about. So they're all just sat around waiting. We're still waiting for Jules Gunon and Fabian Schiller to appear. They probably will be smiling a little bit more than this lot. Here they come along the corridor, and very soon they will no doubt make it out onto the podium. There is the Drago Racing Team ZVO
team and personnel, and they'll be very happy with this result, I'm sure. Jules Gounon, of course, claiming a second victory in as many weekends after the Spa 24-hour success of the previous weekend, and Marciello not managing to get 3 races won in 7 days. It's not my fault. I don't control the throttle pedal in the pit lane in particular. But Schiller and Gounon, as I said, I'm very impressed in particular with Schiller this weekend. He's been strong on race pace in both races, and that particularly shone out front there at the end of this second race. Well deserved from them. They are now looking to head to the podium.
Yes, Fabian Schiller, who raced in ADAC Formula Masters in 2013 and 14, really starting to fit in so well in this team and in this series. Applause for the winners as they come out onto the podium. The Drago Racing Team ZVO. Well, actually applauding the 3rd place to start off with. There's the Allied Racing Team. Sven Muller and Joe Sturm onto the 3rd step. Marciello just about managing a smile, as does Mauro Engel. Somebody must have told him what the point standings are. That's definitely worth a bit of a grin, isn't it? Onto the 2nd step. Onto the top step. They kept it clean. They did what had to be done. Jules Gounon rides Fabian Schiller onto the podium.
The role of Baby Yoda, Jules Gounon.
We now require a massage person for his back as they get onto the podium. There's a Drago Racing Team representative. National anthem time. Three German flags flying behind the podium for this, the German GT Championship. And now the trophies to be presented to our race winners. Very nice trophies too. And they will be utterly delighted with that. Jules Gounon, like Raffaele Marciello, who knows nothing other than winning. And Marciello and Engel with the 2nd place trophy. Didn't quite make it the back-to-back that we thought might be on the cards to become the 2nd back-to-back winners this year. But came very, very close, but for that penalty. And the team that are turning out to be the consistent combination in this championship, along with Guven and Engelhardt, who have been very consistent, Joel Sturm and Sven Muller, always there or thereabouts, certainly have been this weekend with a 2nd place yesterday and a 3rd place today. They have picked up a massive haul of points and hauled themselves into the championship hunt. A trophy also for the winning team.
Yes, and a Zukovsky family member on the podium at the Nürburgring. That's never happened before.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, Nürburgring 24 hours, among other events that the former Zach Speed team was so amazing at, now reincarnated as Drago ZVO as the champagne flies, and they're using the poor man as a human shield. The humanity!
I like the way that he's been held by Fabian Schiller, so there is no escape. It's like, take everything that's coming at you. So there we go. The celebrations commence. We've only got a couple of weeks off because in 2 weeks' time we reconvene at the Lausitzring. Now that will be a very different kettle of fish, using part of the massive tri-oval and part of the infield section. The Lausitzring will be round 5 of the ADAC GT Masters. It will be races 9 and 10 in the championship. Will Raffaele Marciello be able to hold on to that position at the top of the point standing? The one thing about this series is nothing is taken for granted. Nothing is predictable. Join us at the Lausitzring in 2 weeks' time to find out the next chapter in the ADAC GT Masters.